So my name is Dorian Kieken. I'm the founder of a company called AIR, or AI Redefined. It's been founded back in 2017. I think I started full-time on it in March, and the company was incorporated in June or July, I'm not even sure, of 2017. And so it's been going for close to, yeah, I think it's close to 3 years, basically. And yeah, it's very, oh yes, and for what we do in the very short is, if I had to set it in one sentence, we basically train human and AIs together.
And I've got to tell you, I've looked at the website for AI Redefined.
Okay.
And
being redone, by the way, so it's our old one, probably for another few weeks.
Okay, very good. And so I got a glimpse, not being overly wise in the ways of AI, but I got a glimpse of, okay, we're talking about AI and humanity working together, and very much a sense of this is driven by a vision of the future, right?
Correct.
Tell me more about
Correct.
that. How did that drive the company?
Absolutely. So there is many things here to discuss. The very short is, I used to do video games, as you well know. That was back my previous life, basically. And what happened is, I had a successful career in video games, been working in, renowned companies, on renowned games, this sort of things. But I kind of lost a bit the flame, the drive, when I had actually my first daughter. And I'm telling as if it was so obvious, but it was obviously not, right? As I all realized that by having a sabbatical, taking time to think and so on, but video games were just not fulfilling me anymore. And for a very simple reason, not because I don't like playing them, I actually love, but since I'm a dad, I now have two daughters, it's just like, they're the things I care the most about in my life. And when I start to look at the future of humanity in general, and more importantly, the challenge they're going to face as they're going to grow up, they're absolutely massive. We're living a time that is very interesting right now as humanity, more so in the past, as well as it is our capacity to do extraordinary thing and self-destructive thing has just been increasing exponentially. And yeah, we're reaching a point where humanity can reach really a better future or just simply cease to exist. Like, all the possibilities are open right now. And so I came out kind of, taking a sabbatical off, taking the time not thinking about it. It was previous to leave the video game industry, that if I really want to do something that is impactful, meaningful from my daughter point of view, I need to work on, back then it was really 5 things. And those 5 things were, artificial intelligence was the top one, actually. Energy was number 2. Water and drinkable water was number 3. Climate change and waste management. And obviously the order have been shifting a bit, but the short is that all of those things are to some different degree life-threatening, if not a species-threatening element as we progress into the future. Not from the future from a few years point of view, but the future from several decade point of view, right? So let me start with the obvious and most well-known one is climate change, right? I mean, climate change, at the current pace we're going, we're pretty much sure that we're going to warm up the Earth by another additional 2 to 3 degrees, which has, never happened in the history of mankind. What are the consequences? I mean, they're massive. Like, if we keep raising to a certain extent, we can just kill our entire species. At best, right now, we're just planning for by the end of the century, maybe 100 million people dead, or 200 million. I mean, those are the sort of consequences that we're having with climate change, right? Those one are well known, so I won't talk for hours about it. Water reserve is simple. Like right now, we've been talking mostly water that is under Earth. We've been draining, by 2025, I think it's about 25% of the water reserve of the world that will be drained. If we keep at the rate of increasing population side, increasing the use of water, and probably using water for things that are absolutely huge waste. Like every time you wash you flush your toilet, there is the equivalent of having 6 people being able to survive for drinking that just go through the toilet, right? I'm not even going to talk about industrial use of water. My point is water reserves are depleting very fast. And by the end of the century, likely all of it will be gone. And humans don't really do well without water. Now, not everything is bleak. Is we're capable actually to transform salt water into drinkable water, which is something we have at massive scale. It's just that the energy costs are massive to do so, right? Which leads to the second point, which is energy. And energy is touching everything, which is why it's so important, right? Right now we're still relying heavy much on fossil fuel for energy, which generates climate change, right? The lack of the fact that we don't have and we're not harnessing massive amount of energy prevents us to do really very large scale transformation of salt water to drinkable water. So obviously figuring out our energy problem is very important. And in general, we're consuming actually more and more energy at an exponential pace also as well. The population keeps growing and we keep using more and more energy. So we need to figure this out. So transforming to renewable energy is obviously a very, very important step that we need to do right now. Some of the key next step towards nuclear also as well, and the microreactors, things that are actually a lot more safe and don't generate as much waste is very important. But down the road, we need to figure out how to harness larger things like fusion, for example. And we were talking probably at the scale of around 2040, I would say. But so, it looks very futuristic, but these are things that from a century point of view, and I'm, again, reasoning from my daughter's life point of view, not mine. I may be old or dead, but these are things that are very key to solve, right? And so one of the largest one is AI, if not the largest one. And AI, to understand why, is such a big deal. It's not because of Skynet. It's not because of robots walking that are going to exterminate us. It's just very simply for one reason, is that we are at the beginning of creating a new form of intelligence, not a tool, a new form of intelligence. And that's the paradigm switch that people haven't yet noticed. I hate seeing AI constantly being oversold as doing things magic. And right now we're kind of in an AI bubble. But from a long-term point of view, the paradigm shift between coding and kind of predetermined kind of whatever behavior of a computer versus one that can self-learn is massive. It's absolutely massive. Because with self-learning comes a lot of surprises, comes a level of intelligence, right? What's why I often tell when I talk about machine learning is it sometimes feels more like trying to train your kids to do something more than a computer program, right? And the paradigm shift here is massive because as a human, we always have been the dominant form of intelligence on Earth, with all the consequences that we know for the lesser form of intelligence, right? And with artificial intelligence, there is a good, really a good chance that within this century, very strong likelihood, we reach level of intelligence that are comparable to humans or even beyond humans. And this is absolutely massive as a consequences for our species. So by the way, I won't go into all the detail of what I think about that, but if you look at the amount of money that is being invested, just loaned by a country like China, or from a private point of view in all the research of AI, if you look at the progress of the research of AI, we're at the very beginning of AI. It's still very dumb, very narrow, but it's already capable to beat human at games like Go or different video and things like that. Again, you'll say it's constrained, things like that, but my point is we constantly developing new form of machine learning in general. So for me to envision that we'll have massive breakthrough in the next couple of decades, and that they eventually reach what we call AGI, which is a general artificial intelligence, is absolutely not science fiction. This is the strongest likelihood of what is going to happen, right? And so I think we're not tackling that challenge probably. I mean, if you had, let's say, I'm talking about Sam Harris here, that took that reference I really love. Imagine you have an advanced species of alien that arrives on Earth and is like, hey, we'll be back in 50 years, get ready, and then leave, you'll have the entire humanity just, getting together, figuring out how are we going to deal with just, advanced alien just going to come and be on Earth in 50 years from now. Well, we're just doing the same thing. It's just that rather than having alien visiting them from outer space, we're just creating it, because this is what an AI at the highest level of intelligence is. It is an alien. It's just something that thinks in a very different way than we do, right? And we'll have a different drive, different goal, different everything. And so figuring out how we share the road of life in general with this is, I think, probably humanity's biggest challenge for this century, right?
Okay.
Because if we don't get this right, we might be fucked up as a species, right?
Right.
So
this is driving, when I see the verbiage on the website talking about very vision-oriented, humanity-oriented, this is the line of thinking. We're taking a long view here, and we're saying, listen, we have started down the path of inviting the alien species here in the next several decades. We best be prepared for that. So here's a question that I have for you, because you mentioned this a moment ago, talking about the investments in the AI space. And so typically the sorts of folks with whom I've done interviews, they are creating software as a service. They are creating maybe a physical product. And these are things that when you talk to an investor, they can hold it, touch it, use it on their iPad, whatever, and so they get it. How easy did you find it to obtain investment funding for something where we're looking at a horizon decades into the future?
So there is, so hard, let's be honest. When you create a company, what I often say is that to really get funded, at least at the seed level, pre-seed level, at the beginning, you need 2 out of 4 things. And those 4 things are the following: a solid and sound business plan, a business plan, good market opportunity, have a good idea of how you're going to make your revenue, margin, things like that. Obviously, business side. The second one is a strong product or technology, right? Either you have already plenty of patents, or definitely, very strong product that consumer love, already have a user base, things like that. The third one is a strong and compelling vision. And the fourth one is a very strong team. Now, the reason why, what you see on the Shark Tanks, or even in general, whatever you see in VC environment, is it's very common that they're very much geared towards the first 2. And even more so in Canada and the US, I would say. And there is one reason for it, is that you have a lot of young founders. They don't really have a good experience. So it's very rare to have a really strong team. I'm not talking team as in, I have a team of great people. When I mean team, is the analogy I often take is, let's take the one of movies, right? It's the first time you do a movie, or the second one. Maybe you've done a few short movies, things like that. No one will found you because of your team, right? But reversely, it's Spielberg, Harrison Ford, and whoever obviously already come together and like, hey, we're going to do a film together. And you're like, okay, what do you want to do? We don't know. Can we have money, please? Sure. You see what I mean? It's because they already have a pedigree of things they have achieved in their career. That's what I mean by team, right? And so because most people don't have a strong team from that regards, and really have strong vision. And the reason you don't have strong vision, it's very rare to have a very strong vision, right? Or good, compelling vision. The vast majority of business are about solving a very specific problem, finding a niche, making revenue on it. But the best great ideas are still things that are rare. So that's why most of the business get funded on having a solid business plan and solid prototype. And it has become so much the norm. There's even certain VC that only look at that as criteria, right?
Sure.
I remember having a discussion with VC was like, well, if you don't have metrics of either number of users or number of revenues, then we're not funding your business. We don't think you're viable. And I'm like, so DeepMind, who has been bought by Google for $500 million, is not viable because they had no users, they had no revenues, they had no clients. But it's very short-sighted. I'm not saying that DeepMind is the best business ever. It's not, but there's a lot of examples of very good business that are not about users or revenue, right? They're just more about the technology. They're about other things. So for me to see things within only this angle is seeing things in a limited way. Anyway, but the short is you can get founded on other things also as well, right?
Okay.
So in our case, actually, a team helped. The core of a team is only people who didn't care about, there were people who already had a very successful career. My CTO was insanely well paid at Google and could have stayed forever at Google, right? My partner was an executive in video games. I mean, he had like crazy amount of stock option of salary. Like, we're talking only about people who have very comfortable life, right? The reason why they're creating this company is because they want to do something that is compelling. They want to do something, they share basically that common vision. But so I was lucky to be able to found a company with an average of 17 years experience between the founders, each one individual, and all we've, have realized very promising career. You see, they don't have anything to largely prove, at least in their domain, right?
Right.
So I was able to check the team mark, and I would say that I mostly got founded thanks to that team mark. And I think that the vision is actually a very compelling vision. What we do is something that is not only compelling from a long-term point of view, but also the very core. So I'll explain quickly what we do. I'll explain separately. I'll just finish my point. But
Okay.
what we do is compelling enough and unique enough that it scores well also on the vision side. So I was able to get founded even though the product side was less developed and the business side was less developed. However, with each round, you need to develop and strengthen every of your different pillars, right? So a company that is getting founded on the prototype and business, guess what, will have to develop their vision and their team, right? In my case, it's been mostly about developing the product and the business, right? And that's fine, right? It's just another way to look at things, right? So anyway, let me take a step back. I haven't described it. I'll explain a bit what we do and why we're doing it.
Okay, and I don't want to take too much more of your afternoon, so do be concise for those of us with the layman's education.
No worries. Remember when I was saying that the relationship with AI is very important, right? Well, if you want to figure out how to have, or figure out a relationship we'll have with something that is alien, we need to be able to have that alien or that intelligence trained to interact with us and us trained to interact with it, right? So that's the very core of it.
Okay.
Well, the big problem we have today, and most of the training of the training technique in machine learning don't really have direct human involvement in them, or human directly part of a training. And the first method, called supervised learning, which is learning from examples, consists mostly of an AI just analyzing and finding pattern in a massive amount of data, right? So if you want an AI to recognize a cat, you'll feed it a million images of a cat, right? So the problem with this is you don't have direct human interaction. It's mostly, the human interaction mostly on the labeling of the data. It's mostly an AI learning from example from existing data. Not very interesting to figure out how you can have human and machine collaborate together, do fancier things, right?
Okay, I'm with you so far.
Then the second technique, reinforcement learning, is about an AI that learns through trial and error in a simulation, right? That's how you get simulators progress in self-driving car. That's how you get an AI that beats people at video games, go through like that. Well, the AI just learned by itself, playing against itself in a video game at the speed of an AI. Not much human interaction neither on it. So what we're developing as a company is a new method where we have directly the human as part of the interaction process, right? So the AI learns as it is interacting with the human, right? And we're using what we call human in the loop reinforcement learning, which is basically reinforcement learning, but apply in the interaction with humans. Or in other words, in simpler words, we're training human and machine together, right? And we do those in virtual environment because that's the easiest way to do it for now, but that's the very core of what we do. And so it allows to train AIs on behavior, level of intelligence that were probably not possible with the other form of training because we're no human in it, right? And so the use case we have are an AI coach that help pilots to train better, for example, or what we call man-machine teaming, which is think of your AI as being a sort of wingman, for example, in air combat, or having an AI that can help you make decision on air traffic match and this sort of thing. Anything that involves basically complex data and a human in it. So these are the use case we're after. But so I think that what was promising and was also interesting for investors, we're just opening a lot of new possibilities also from a business point of view, right?
Okay.
So anyway, that's the very short, and I can speak for hours about it, of what we do. Our little challenge has been that we're a bit early. And let me explain by a bit early is, as a business, timing is probably the most important factor, even more so than the team or the culture you're creating or the fantastic technology you have. Is if you're too early, you're dead. If you're too late, you're also often dead. So yeah, we might be a bit early, but I'm feeling a bit better about this now. We're on time for certain markets, but they're just rare. There's not many. We have use case in the world of aviation, aerospace, defense, usually companies that are very large, very technologically sophisticated, and have needs like, having a human co-pilot or things like that, and have a means to do that, the simulation to do that, the AI research team to do that. So that's the good news, is we have a few use cases that will get us going. We're definitely not mainstream as a market, and we probably won't be for several years, I think.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because you've sort of addressed some of the business concerns there. You mentioned team quite a bit and the importance there of the value that you have in the level of experience that's there. Every company, be it an emerging company, be it decades old, still has people challenges. They may vary, but if you have people, you have challenges. Give me an example of a people challenge that you've encountered and how you've dealt with that or are dealing with it.
Interesting. So we didn't have too many people challenges yet, which is the good news of us as a company. We've been very selective of who we hire. We have quite a very selective hiring process. The founders have always been based around this rule, which is, there are people I either worked with, so I know exactly what I'm getting, or people that have worked with people I've been working with. So, there's a lot of that sort of trust. So we went at it kind of the easy way. One of the challenges we had was a bit of a tension. I kind of solved now, is we have people coming from very much academic background and some other with very applied background. And the mentality is really not the same. The approach to things is really not the same. So, but it was more of a cultural shock than anything, I would say. And it's been since acclimated. And honestly, those are people who've been solving it themselves, right? I mean, we've been talking separately and kind of giving advice, but letting them solve. So it's been mostly through that as a mean. I think that's probably been one of our biggest people challenge, which is not really big, I would say. There is, it inevitably, with any form of human group of any kind, will be a company, a family, a tribe, whatever you call it. You'll always end up with people challenges.
Right. And it sounds like the things you've described there are different mindsets. So a difference in decision-making, a difference in collaborative preference, a difference
so researcher
in
world really, so it's very interesting you're saying that. The researcher world is a lot about you do alone your research, right? So you're very autonomous, you're very self-driven in your research, but you're kind of like working more on a solitary basis point of view, right? The world of very applied elements is you're just constantly used to work as a team, right? And towards always, going into a very specific goal. And then you have weird things, like, for example, in the world of research, it's very important to know who has been doing what, and you put names in your paper, you've been collaborating with this person on this. In the world of software development world, who cares? Like, as long as the result is where it's working, is tested, and, I don't care that you've been doing this model and that, right? So it created some weird and interesting conflict, right?
Okay. And one thing I should have asked you at the outset, you shared roughly the age of the company. How many people are at the company now?
14, 1-4. So
Okay.
14, and we're planning to grow to the 20-ish by next year.
Wow. Okay. Another aspect that I should have mentioned before, you're in Montreal, Quebec, right?
Correct. Montreal,
Okay. And
Quebec,
are
yes.
all of your people co-located? Do you have remote team members?
They all co-located. Our advisors are a bit all over the world, but the team is all co-located. I think the person, we had we just did a relocation for someone who joined us from Toronto, for example. But yeah, we all co-located, and we're very loose on the rule of you can work from home, right? Again, lost the light. Well, it's okay. So yeah, people can work from home whenever they want. I would say on average, people work from the office 4 times on average per week, and they work from home another time. So basically, 4 days at the office, 1 day at home. Sometimes 3 days at the office, 2 days at home. But so it balances it this way. We're very, very open on that, very flexible. We haven't had someone working remotely from really far in the world.
Okay. And in the interest of saving the remainder of your afternoon, I greatly appreciate your time. What's one thing that you would want to share in closing about your company, your team, your progress that we haven't touched
on? One thing it depends really on the audience here, but right now I'm going to sound like a bit proud in kind of my notes, is you often get told what to do and not to do, right? And it's that very weird world of the entrepreneur, which is if you're not stubborn, your idea, whatever you're trying to achieve, gets diluted in the many comment and direction and feedback that everyone is getting, right? But at the same time, if you're too stubborn, that means you're not listening to others. And that means most of the time your company will die because you're not going to adapt to just the reality that is constantly changing. So you need to keep the pulse of your reality that is constantly changing and to be able to adapt while remaining totally stubborn on certain things, right? And so
Flexible
in this
stubbornness.
case, yes. So in this case, I had so many times the story of like, what you're doing is too crazy, too ambitious. You need to dial it down. You need to raise less money, or you need to raise more money. I had that too. Or don't do this or do that, or you're starting a business without a very solid business plan. You shouldn't. Like, why are you so fixated on technology? You should only focus about finding a very specific buzz on the problem. Like, everyone will constantly have a different ideas and things like that. And most of the time, those feedback are based on certain general realities. It's true that if you start a business and you're starting that business by solving another business problem in a very clear way, it's very easy to get funding. It's very easy to solve. It's very easy to start a business. But meaning that something is easy to do doesn't mean that this is the right thing to do. Right? And there isn't a better person than yourself to know what is the right thing to do, right? And
Exactly.
so I think I wouldn't be where I'm here today if I didn't have that sort of stubbornness, right? I had people telling me, well, Canadian company will never get funded in the US. You need to have a sort of like, I raised $3.5 million in the US, so fuck you, right? You shouldn't build or start a company without having a very solid business plan. Otherwise, you won't be able to get contracts like that. I'm about to sign multiple contracts. I didn't have a sales building plan, so fuck you again, right? So it's just like, it's you need to trust in what you believe. Still surround yourself with a lot of people, get feedback, but at the very core, you're the only person who can filter what is kind of the right and wrong based on what you're trying to achieve, right? So anyway, that's my little my little recommendation, I would say, in the world of entrepreneurship is be stubborn about what you want to do.
Very
so that
good.
actually you end up doing it.
That's right. Very good. Thank you so much for your time and telling me more than I knew 30 minutes ago about the world of AI and human interactions. And best of luck with
Thank
AI
you.
Redefined.
Thank you.